I'm Summer Huntington of Steel Mace Vinyasa and Shala, and today I'll be talking about striking patterns with the heavy club. Here I have a 10-pound and a 15-pound club, and I really want to break down a striking pattern, also known as a casting pattern. When people first start out with clubs, this is one of the most important movements to learn and really get the mechanics dialed in and the alignment dialed in. So let's start here in our two-handed order position. Notice my elbow is married to the rib. There's not a gap here. I'm not holding it with my bicep. Instead, I'm actually pinching my elbow to my rib, and my shoulder goes into scapular elevation and depression to recruit my lat. When I bring my other hand onto it, this is now called a two-handed guard position. So striking patterns, which are derived from martial arts, look like this. Inhale into back position, we exhale into the strike. Inhale and exhale. Notice I'm doing a power breath as I pull the club down into my two-handed order position. Inhale, exhale. So you can call this two-handed order, two-handed guard. This can be a shoulder cast or a strike. We want to look at movement critically and look at the origins of the warrior training. So when warriors train for battle with these leverage tools, the clubs and the mace, striking patterns were really, really imperative. Mark Wildman and I teach the striking patterns, the blocking patterns, the throwing patterns, and the lifting patterns, which I think of as the four movements, primal movements that allow us to use leverage tools. We teach those at our retreats, and I'll also be teaching this at my next heavy club seminar in Seattle this October. Switch sides, start in order, elbow married to the rib, squeeze elbow in, shoulders in pack, lat is engaged. You can do a little test here to see that your lat is on. You want to see that your glutes aren't as well. When you grab it with two hands, it now becomes a guard position. Again, thinking back to warrior training, I'm standing at guard so that I can be prepared to go into my striking pattern, aka my shoulder cast pattern. Notice I'm doing a power breath every time I wield the club down into that two-handed guard. I do that power breath, which forces my core to activate. Let's say I wanted to bring a surging pattern into my striking pattern. So surging without any cast looks like this. A surge is just a forward action, moving forward and back. For example, into a tactical lunge. We want the back glute to be on and firing. We want 90-degree bends in both legs. Notice this knee is straight down below the hip bone. Same thing on the other side. Sometimes the knee will surge forward and you want to pull it back so that the knee stacks over the ankle and the back knee drops straight down here. So let's integrate our striking pattern with a tactical lunge. In the 6 degrees of freedom, which we teach at our seminars and our workshops, 6 degrees of freedom is a way of looking at movement. So surging simply means moving forward and back relative to my starting position in space. So I like to start with my right hand closest to the globe. You'll see in Mark's work, he switches it up. Great to understand both ways, because when you're training like a warrior and you're in a fighting scenario, you're not going to have time to switch your hands. You need to be good at both ways. So here we go. Wrist in line with elbow, creating a little bit of leverage here. Glutes are on to begin. I initiate my striking pattern. Inhale, back position. As I strike down, I step forward with my opposite leg and I pull my mace into that two-handed guard position. Body upright, back glute is on and firing. Deep inner core and pelvic floor is also firing. I step back to my two-handed guard, ready and alert. Inhale, back position. Exhale, strike. Tactical lunge, step back. Inhale, resisting pitch, another degree of freedom, resisting bananaing the back here. Instead, we want to keep the core knitted in, core set the core in. Inhale, back position, exhale, strike with that tactical lunge. Last one on this side, and then mindfully switch sides. Again, looking at alignments, I can see I'm not in an acute angle here, which is really common when people first start out. They want to hold it with their bicep. By bringing my wrist down to be at the same height as my elbow and finding a 90-degree angle here, I can actually hold the weight of the club with my lat and then my glutes and core as well. This is referred to as the trifecta in my heavy clubs certification seminars. Inhale, back position. Exhale. Notice I'm stepping forward with my opposite leg here, which forces that contralateral core activation Fancy word for just turning on your obliques. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, strike with that surge. So one ought to master just a regular strike from mountain pose with glute activation first before adding complexity and pairing two movements together in a compound exercise. This is a shoulder cast with a tactical lunge, which would be a compound exercise. So we've covered two-handed striking patterns from mountain, two-handed striking patterns from a mountain into tactical lunge. Let's add load and see what happens. What I find is that oftentimes women and men tend to really just default into really light club swinging. I'm going to challenge you to regress the movement in such a way that you can start to learn the mechanics and increase your confidence by increasing your load. So I'll show you how to do that. We start in our two-handed guard position. Again, I'm gonna have my hand down by the knob here, my opposite hand across. I'll stand at an angle here so you can see. Let's say I don't quite have a shoulder cast with this load, so I might regress by coming into a shoulder park, finding a hip hinge in a squat, pull my club into two-handed guard position. Inhale, find my shoulder park, and then pull it into guard. This is one of the regressions that I teach with my private one-on-one clients. And you'll be learning this at our Heavy Club seminar in Seattle this October if you're coming to get my 16-hour continuing ed certification. You want to have a place where we can regress the movement pattern and the motor control required to handle that load. So me, I can handle a shoulder cast to order, but somebody that's just beginning needs to build up the awareness, the motor control, the pathways required to hold here. So notice the path has shortened. Instead of going up and over the head, which would be basically, this is, we'll start this at like 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, beyond 180 degrees, and back to that 0 point. We can go here, the knob comes up to 90 degrees, and we pull the club into order. So great little trick there for regressing. Let's try it on the other side. We've got our shoulder park squat, rip crush, pull the mace or club rather into that two-handed guard position. Maintain leverage as you find your shoulder park. So we squat, hip hinge. If you have the depth, you can drop down a little deeper. As you come up, pull, elbow to rib. It has to connect to the rib. This is one of the biggest things Mark and I are always correcting on our athletes at retreats is pinch that elbow to the rib. Pinch it. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Next progression, I'm building out a brand new program. If you want to get on the wait list for anything club related, I'll drop the club info wait list in the link in bio, so definitely get on. So let's say I'm wanting to progress in weight and I want to do my tactical lunge, but I don't quite have the strength or the stamina to do my shoulder cast, but I want to still perform some element of that exercise. So I start in my two-handed guard position. My feet are hip distance apart, both glutes are on. I can regress this by just stepping forward into a tactical lunge, here to here, staying on the one side, engaging the lats. Here I'm building the muscular strength and stability in my lats and in my rotator cuff, also my wrist, to be able to do the movement dynamically. And then let's say I want to progress it here, I can park it on the shoulder, pull it into my guard position, park it on the shoulder. Maybe I want to add a little squat, pull it into that two-handed guard or order, they're kind of synonymous here. Squat, tactical lunge. Eventually, finding my shoulder cast into my tactical lunge. So again, regression number 1, tactical lunge with heavy load, glute, lat, core engagement, finding that trifecta. This is referred to as a surging pattern, moving forward and back, my elbows pinch to the rib, especially with heavier clubs. My next progression, I park it on the shoulder so that I have somewhere to go. I'm moving from this 90-degree plane into my 90-degree elbow. So here I have a much shorter path to take this heavy club from here, and I'm not just passive here, I'm wringing out my club like a washcloth, getting my lats on, firing both glutes to start, and then cranking it into that starting position. I like to add a little squat here just to shock absorb. and it's an extra moment of glute engagement. So I shock absorb, tactical lunge, eventually shoulder cast, tactical lunge, shoulder cast, tactical lunge. Last one, crown to coccyx alignment, knee in line with ankle, back knee in line with hip, back glute on, torque in both legs. Now, I want to acknowledge there are different schools of thought when it comes to training heavy clubs. My work is in training people with no experience with clubs or no experience with leverage tools. So you might see some of the exercises that I present, they come with my background in kinesiology and motor control. And so I'm not necessarily starting with swings and throwing patterns, I'm starting with stability first, because the athletes that I tend to train in my one-on-one sessions, in my group studio, when I ran a group studio for 6+ years, and in my online programs tend to be weekend warriors that are just getting started. They've never touched a club or a mace before, and I really want to keep them safe. So I hope you learned a little something about how to move up in weights from the 10-pound to the 15. Hope you enjoyed the striking pattern. You start to feel how much more embodied and confident you can feel as you start to open up the collarbones and really stand tall like a warrior. If you want to stay in touch about any club-related products or certification seminars, just drop your name in the link down in the description and leave a comment if you learned something.